We are live at Gaslight Lounge. Chris Denman, Travis Rowe. We have a very special guest in studio today. We'll get to him in just a moment. Big thanks, Travis, to Matthew Ehrenreich, Edward Jones Financial, making this happen today, sponsors the show. He's a big part of our success.
He's
namely.
He's a reputable partner, and we appreciate his support.
Look at that. That was so professional of you. At Helium Comedy Club all weekend long, right here in St. Louis, the great Jay Chandrasekhar. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to be here, man. Super Troopers 2 coming out, director,
You said
star.
you're very excited to be here?
I was going to say the same thing.
Jay is excited to be here.
But is
I'd
he?
like to speak for
But
you.
is he?
Yeah. Yeah.
What else am I all about?
Devilishly handsome,
Okay.
super talented.
Go on.
Let's grease it. Yeah, Cubs are, they're a team. We'll do that. We're excited to have you. You're here in St. Louis. I'm sure it's been a busy, blaze of things. Did you just get in? Just fly
I got in 2 hours ago, and I did the Riz show.
Oh,
Very nice. Good
It
dudes.
was fun. They were fun.
Yeah. And
Told
then
some stories I probably shouldn't have told.
that's typically how it goes. When you were in Chicago last night, we were just talking about this. Give us a little info on what you did in Chicago.
Well, we're going around the country and doing a 17-city tour. I guess we'll talk about this a little later, but we crowdfunded this movie. So
Right.
So
we've been showing
so
those,
interesting.
those people who put money into Super Troopers 2, we're showing them an early sneak peek. They
Right.
bought the right to see it early.
Right.
And so we have these huge screenings, and we go introduce the movie, and then we show them the movie, and then afterwards we take pictures and sign autographs and hang out and all that stuff. So it's, the interesting thing about it is that I'm aware of the emotional connection some people have to
Right.
the film.
We're 30. He's 34 today. It's Travis's birthday today. I'm 33. Perfect age for
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah, very much.
It's
Very
been a part of just social circles since I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, so we wanted to make sure people had a soft landing in the second film.
Right.
So, I mean, first of all, we wrote 35 drafts of it. We, wrote thousands of jokes. We made sure to only keep, curated and put the right good ones in.
Right.
And then I told the other guys in Broken Lizard, I said, I'm not rolling camera until we all weigh exactly the same as we did in the first film.
Wow.
So that when people see the movie, they'll be like, they look a little older, but they don't look fatter and older.
Right.
So, soft landing.
What has been like?
What do people think when they see me if they haven't seen me in 5 years, Travis?
Oh, they will definitely say softer landing because you're a size of many pillows. But that's not here or there.
Sorry, go ahead.
But no, I was going to say but I would imagine you guys use that same energy that you had from your following to help with crowdfunding. How was the crowdfunding process in getting to the goal that you guys were looking to get to?
Well, when we said to Fox we want to make Super Troopers 2, they said, great. Why don't you guys raise the money?
We've heard that happens with students. There's a great Burt Kreischer story of him walking into Happy Madison with just his life's work on the table. He's like, I'm perfect for this job. And we love this. This is so fantastic. And we look forward to your release of it. Similar situation to you.
Not so much, but I mean, they said, we will release this wide if you can get it made.
Okay.
And so there's, as much as like we're doing all this do-it-yourself stuff in life, even with movies, you make independent films, nobody can really release a film the way a studio can release a film. They know how to do it,
Right.
and they can book it and get it into every theater. I mean, it's a big, important thing for somebody to say they'll release your movie. So when we decided to raise the money, we thought, we looked at what happened with Veronica Mars, and they raised, $5.8 million or something. And so,
Insane.
We called up the guy who did that campaign and said, what do you think? And he said, it's interesting because I'm a fan of your film, and I've been sitting here quietly thinking that you should crowdfund it.
Wow.
And I'm like, why didn't you call me? But so he says, I know where your fans are online. He's like one of those like deep space computer nerds.
Darknet. Yeah.
He knows stuff, right? He can find things. You look at his computer, it's like all that jumbly words and all that stuff.
So he's Russian. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we created a campaign, which meant we shot about 25 videos, and we were going to drop a video almost every day.
Right.
But when you're doing that, again, people haven't seen us in those characters in a long time. So you really got to you gotta, it's really starting the advertising campaign started when we started the Indiegogo campaign because people saw us again and they're like, okay, yeah, they look the same.
Right.
They know,
What from now to so we're at release? When did you exactly start? How many years ago was it?
We crowdfunded it in, I guess, 2015.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's about right. It was right. Yeah. Kevin and your partners, Kevin and Steve, came through.
Yeah,
the comedy show.
and so we had a goal of $2 million, and that's sort of a, you set a goal. I mean, that's not low, but we set it there,
right?
And we got there in 24 hours, and then after 30 days, there was still some giving after the initial campaign ended, but I think we're at about 4.7.
Wow.
Yeah, and 54.
Director get a healthier cut with that?
The way Jay just dropped his head, he goes,
here,
no, no.
54,000 people put money into it,
right.
And
that's so exciting.
it was, it was thrilling. Now the problem was that wasn't enough to make the movie. We needed at the end of the day, the film ended up being $13.5 million. So we needed to raise the rest,
right.
And the way crowdfunding works is if you raise all that money and you don't spend it in that calendar tax year, you get taxed on it.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go into production and spend, a good portion of it on, we basically shot for 6 days and then raised the rest of the money through private financing.
Oh, wow.
So we had this it was a high risk move to even try crowdfunding. If people didn't crowdfund it, then Fox would have been like, we're not going to release. Nobody wants to see it.
It's a punch in the gut too. It's obviously very important to you too,
Yeah.
and it's creatively and then also financially getting turned down.
Right. That would have been the end of it.
Right.
But the other big risk we took was we took that money and used it to shoot 6 days.
Right.
Now, if we couldn't raise the rest of the money, we'd be in jail.
I'm trying to think how does that and then I don't the prison time is a bad thing, but then also being the guy who played in Super Troopers in a jail, having jailers go, hey, yeah,
Well, you don't want to be a cop in jail, right?
no, even a perceived cop.
That's right.
That's trouble.
But
too.
I bet we get a good Broken Lizard movie out of the jail time. I think we could come up with a pretty funny.
I think we get points on that too because you're part of the
right,
process.
okay.
Is that I noticed that too with people that show interest. I think you walk that super interesting line of appealing to those you're parodying. I feel like you have a good law enforcement following that people are into, like, haha, that's great. But then also you have the stoner mentality or there's a bunch of different people that really enjoy this film. Is that the truth, or have I just heard a few good examples?
Half our
people?
crowds, if you go to Helium tonight, you'll see half the crowds are stoners and the other half are cops. And they're sitting side by side.
Party in its own, yeah.
Theoretically laughing at the same jokes. It's an amazing thing. I mean, we thought cops would be offended or that they would arrest us with more frequency.
Right. Oh, that was cute, huh?
But
Right.
they seem to love it, and they, like when we occasionally will speed or whatever, they'll walk up, they'll go, can we take a picture? And there's no ticket, right?
Yeah, certainly.
When I was shooting Dukes of Hazzard in New Orleans, we shut down the 10 freeway to do a jump of the Generally, and so we had tons of cops. I mean, we were just shutting down so much traffic, right? And
is this okay? Like, you can literally do anything.
well, the cops like, do you want to drive the Generally as fast as it can go, and I'll give you an escort? I'm like, sure. And so the chief of police came out that day, and he gives me his card. He goes, son, you get into any trouble down here in New Orleans, you just you give me a call. And he goes, anything short of murder. And then he goes, actually, murder's okay for you too.
Look at that. Travis, do you aspire to reach that level?
To be able to walk up in a police station, but so what? I killed a couple white women. I got this business card. I'm good. That is the goal in life.
Literally a get out of jail free card. So again, just to remind everybody, Helium Comedy Club all weekend long. Grew up in Chicago?
Yeah.
What part of Chicago?
Well, Hinsdale, suburbs.
Very cool. And you said you're a Cubs fan and a Blackhawks fan, and you were telling us about an awesome story from literally last night.
I got to shoot the puck between the second and third periods. They take like a kid out, and it was the bronze ice skating winner. She came out and shot, and then I shot. And the kid got the goal. I missed by 2 inches twice. And
Story of our lives.
She missed wildly.
Well, that's why she's bronze.
But then, Jonathan Toews apparently saw me out there in my uniform, and then he wanted to meet, and so we hung out a little bit, and then that whole goalie thing happened, where
this is insane.
The starting goalie got injured, then our backup goalie got injured,
had to go to the emergency goalie.
They brought in this emergency goalie, a 36-year-old accountant who didn't give up a goal.
7 or 8 shots on goal.
7 shots on goal. He blocked them all.
What's the acting equivalent to that? Like pulling one of the maintenance guys in to be like, okay, we're going to need you to nail this part. Because again, I was wondering the salary implications. I was like, does he get to join the union now? Is he an NHL player because he got actual time?
I don't know. And what happens in the next game? Like, if those other two guys are injured, exactly.
You gotta stay with it, Trev.
Well, then the funny thing is, and if Way was explained to us, because the Blues had a similar situation a few months back where I think it's the emergency goalie for the arena. It's not just specifically for the Blackhawks. So if it happened to the opponent and they were down, they could have used him, or they.
Well, I got it. I mean, I don't know Taves that well, but I got it. He texted me and he goes, we're literally playing a beer league guy in goal right now.
That is outstanding.
And he's an accountant, and it's not like he's like, well, he's 23 and he played a couple years in the. No, he's playing pickup games on the weekends. You gonna make a movie about that now? I mean, is that what we're?
Someone sent me a tweet this morning with a picture of Heffernan and that goalie and said, "This is your next movie."
That's perfect.
Now, what having the following you have, and having such a cult following with Super Troopers, I would imagine this happens frequently when you are going to be on stage this weekend. Unfortunately, as well-behaved St. Louisans as they are, there is going to be someone or a few who will shout out 20 lines from the film. How do you normally navigate when you're on stage doing your set and you get the people or person who has to?
Well, it's best when they yell it not in the middle of a setup.
Okay.
But, people who yell out in the middle of shows are not totally savvy about when to yell.
Generally not. They've had 3 drinks with umbrellas in them. Right?
Yeah.
And that's right. So it's time to cut loose, and they're going to be part of the show. Whether
they
like
paid.
It or not.
They are entitled to yell it out if they want to. It makes them happy.
Right.
You don't strike me as somebody that's going to scream for security. I feel like it's kind of you work it in, and if you got to boot them,
I'll make fun of them somehow. Everyone will laugh at them.
Yeah,
and then we'll move on.
That makes
fine.
perfect.
It's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, you do that. Okay, so you're working through this, and obviously we want to focus on Super Troopers 2. Everybody needs to go out, support that. Since we're past the crowdfunding phase, what? Especially with digital platforms, everything else like that. Do you have a hand, and you and the group have a hand in digital releases? Is that all on Fox now? I mean, does the work continue? I guess because
when you
obviously
say
we're doing
digital releases, what do you mean?
So it used to be you would have said, "Hey, I really need to go pimp these DVDs or VHSs now." So after you do your theater run, and we have the big, oh wow, it's killing it again. Indie movie makes big once again. What is it? What's post? Theater release life like for you?
Well, hopefully we'll get sent to England and kind of do all that press over there.
Right.
But once it's out of the theaters, they've got a very good home video department. So they sell it. They sell it to obviously Comedy Central. They seem to like our first one,
right?
HBO and Netflix, and all those in foreign lands, and they really have a good distribution system.
Do you play well overseas? That's a big thing now too. You think about.
We play really well in England, Ireland, Scotland, Australia, Canada, Spain, Germany for some reason.
Beer Fest maybe help with that.
Well, Germany, Munich, when the movie came out, Beer Fest, Munich tried to ban the film.
Really?
Because they said this this film makes German culture look bad. And I was like, yeah, this film and the Holocaust. I mean, it's kind of
I was like,
1, 2,
kind of a
2, 1,
glaring-
you know. But
a close second.
it's like it flips depending.
Right. The silly, fun, super, just funny movie.
But
Yeah,
since
that's what's going to bring it down.
then, they were unable to block the movie, and then people from Germany have now like become really big fans of this film. And like we did a Beer Fest event in Chicago, and two huge guys from Germany flew over to be in the event, and I'm like, are you guys faking these accents? No, they're really German. And I'm like, what are you doing flying over here? They're like, it's a huge movie over there. I'm like, okay.
You're like, dude, you are from Lincoln Park. I know you just came over this way. Just drop the accent. Like, what are you doing here? That's fantastic, though. But when you create something like those that people tend to, I feel like people get on board with the DIY mentality, and they kind of get it to a scene. It's like, I better go buy this T-shirt. I better go to this event. Otherwise, we don't get to see great stuff that you put together.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a unique situation in Hollywood in that, we write movies and then we're in them, right? So that's not really how the Hollywood system works. They're like, yeah, we'll put better looking people in them, and then that'll be the movie, right? And so we've always had to sort of adopt this. Raise your own money, learn how to shoot, edit it yourself, all that stuff. We had to do that. And because of that, we became good at making movies. And now the movies actually look like real movies. I mean, so it's like you have to know how to do it. A lot of comedy groups get to this point and they're like, we'd like to make a movie, and then none of them know how. And nobody in Hollywood's going to be like, yeah, I'll put you 5 random guys in this movie, right? So the movie never gets made because just the basic lack of knowledge of how to make a movie.
Can you give us an idea where the characters are come the sequel without giving too much away, obviously, but can you give us a sense
Emotional
as to
growth for Super
I'm
Troopers?
just curious, where will we find ourselves once we jump right back into the sequel?
Well, look, the opening of that first movie had a real, like, I mean, I'll tell you this. The opening of that first movie, we wrote it that way. We really worked on it hard because we wanted to open the movie well. Because in the first film we made, Puddle Cruiser, the first 9 minutes of the movie are the weakest 9 minutes. The rest of the movie is pretty good. But those first 9 minutes, when people are deciding if they want to see this movie, they're like, and then, and it was really a handicap for us. So when we made the first one, we really, really focused. And I remember, but we'd only shown it to about 5 stoners in my living room, right? So, and they're like,
it's a hit.
They're like, you're in it, man. And I'm like, okay, I am in it. But it wasn't clear whether it was funny or not, and there's all this, for me, for everybody who does this, there's an immense amount of self-loathing, right? So I watched
Travis,
it.
that hit you pretty hard.
So you're talking to 2 AM radio personalities. There's plenty of self-loathing in what we do.
I watched it so many times. I'm like, I don't know if it's funny. I don't know if this opening's funny. And then Kevin Heffernan, who played Farber, he was like, it's funny. I think it's funny. I'm like, okay. All right. And then we went to the lab the day before we went to Sundance, and we were screening the film one last time. Then we're going to get on the plane and go to Utah. And we screened the opening, and I'm like, stop the film. And I stood up. I'm like, this fucking sucks. I'm like, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah.
How could we think that this was funny? And why did I act that way? I act like Clint Eastwood. What's the fuck was that dumb Clint Eastwood ripoff? And so, and then Kevin's like, I think it's funny. And the color timer was like, I think it's funny too. I mean, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Just roll the damn film. And I just sat there like glum.
Yeah.
Looking at it. And then
as everyone enjoyed themselves.
2 nights later, we showed it in Utah, and it was like they were ripping the seats out in that opening scene. And we were like, oh, my God.
How did you reconcile with that then? Because I can understand,
what
as a writer or director, you can be the harshest critic.
I cry once a decade.
Right.
Like I'm totally emotionless generally. But tears rolled down my cheeks in that theater. I mean, it was the dark, so nobody saw it.
Fair. We don't want to crack that one.
Right. Yeah. But it was... I think the way you reconcile is, sometimes the being in a scene, it clouds my judgment.
I see. Yeah.
It clouds sometimes.
Right.
I never really liked myself in the movies, to be honest with you.
Do you want to join our show? This is
but I know it's probably okay. I know I'm still doing fine, I guess.
Did going through that process?
You know what I mean? Like,
don't look to me for.
I know.
I
know it's good enough.
But I would imagine that makes it a little bit
Go
interesting.
go to Helium for some great confident comedy this weekend.
But that's interesting because this movie now has this massive following, and here you are, the guy at the center of writing and directing.
This is what I'm
talking
about. You've been in major motion film. You direct film. You do your own thing. You have a very unique career path.
And then at some moment you said, "This is shit."
Right.
And it goes on to be one of the bigger independent films we've ever seen.
I always like this too. Like, do you ever want to choke your agent or your manager? You're like, why am I paying you? Like, what are we doing here? This is the stuff that I find to be interesting with people at your level, because people on the outside are just like, they just say, oh, movie star. Yeah, dude from that, probably lives in a giant place, doesn't have any real problems, does whatever he wants. There are so many hurdles that you hit on a daily basis, even at your success
when you make a movie, you really are saying, here's like 300-400 jokes that we think are funny, right?
Yeah.
And we're putting the story up, and we're in it. We wrote it. I directed it. And if people don't like it, they tell you, and they tell you online, and they insult you. And so they insult you in the press. They insult you in the New York Times. And so the whole thing of we don't have problems is like, look, we're taking high-risk ego bets, right?
Yeah.
We're like rolling the ego dice here. And sometimes they come up really well, and sometimes they don't.
Right.
And that's something you just got to live with, right?
You said the don't part. Now, I'm curious now, when you did get the negative feedback or any negative feedback on any of your projects, then how did you recalibrate to react? And how did you react when there were negative review or negative comments?
Told Germany to go fuck themselves.
You really have to just, the right way to do it is to not read the reviews, but inevitably some friend will, did you believe this guy said this about you?
What's wrong with people that do that bring your attention to those things? Like, why is that a part of their day?
No. When we put an audience in a room and show our films, there is laughter, right? And we know that because I've done it over and over and over and over again.
Right.
We got reviewed for Beer Fest from a review site called Grandma's Reviews from Arizona.
Right.
Shout out to Grandma.
And Grandma thought there was too much drinking in the film.
And what was the name of the film?
Beer Fest. And she gave it a bad rating. And I had to live with it. On Rotten Tomatoes, Grandma. I don't think Grandma should be allowed to review comedies.
Grandma downloads our show, so I'm sure she's
completely shit on your Rotten Tomatoes score. That's awesome.
It's terrible.
It does. If you haven't, you shouldn't be allowed to be in the Rotten Tomatoes equation on comedies if you didn't like The Hangover, you didn't like Ted, Super Troopers. I don't know.
Tommy Boy has a pretty low rating for as many people as love it.
Right. But that's because reviewers are writers, right? And writers are trying to get attention by being a little bit edgy, and so they're trying to take a little bit of a funny pot shot at a film.
Right.
We worked for 4 or 5 years on this damn thing, and this guy rips off a review in half an hour probably with a good zinger. I get it, but
I would think you're a writer yourself.
I get it. I reviewed a movie once and I insulted it. And it turned out to be like a Spike Jonze and Sofia Coppola short. This is before they became them.
Okay, all right.
And Spike Jonze' underrated performance in the war movie Three Kings.
Spike Jonze is great. And by the way, I got to meet Spike and work with him on Jackass too. But I said something about this movie feels like a stale fish or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, I so regret it. Because I was trying to be entertaining. I was trying to get this writing.
Right.
I was writing for, it wasn't Spin. It was some other magazine. And they were, maybe they were going to hire me to review movies. I wasn't an established filmmaker. I don't even think I'd made, And I insulted this film. And I was like, what? And then the next week, they're like, you need to interview Sofia Coppola for the Sister magazine. I'm like, did you see the review I wrote about this thing? They're like, you got to do it.
Well, there's a million Jay Chandrasekhars out there.
You're the only one who's seen it. That was the thing. And I'm like, oh, man. So I call her up, and she's like, it's just like a home video. I don't know that it needed to be reviewed. And then we're having this conversation. I'm like, God, I feel terrible.
Did you stand up for your review?
No, I said, no, I'm not going to review films anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of a paper thing. Yeah, is it more? Have you dealt with a peer in your industry reviewing or speaking out about something that you did creatively?
Yeah, Stephen King didn't like The Dukes of Hazzard. And he wrote a review in Rolling Stone for some reason. And I got no beef with Stephen King until now. Now I got a beef with Stephen King. Now I say stuff like, kind of writes too many books, doesn't he? How could any of them really be that good?
Right.
You know, The Shining was good, and then The Stand maybe.
It's been downhill ever since.
But I can't explain it. I guess I'm that petty that if you come after me, I'm going to come after you.
What if we have a
I agree.
What if we have a mixtape, like kind of a battle situation where he writes a book called The Sad Director, and you end up getting murdered in some gruesome way, or your likeness.
Is that how I come off sad?
The ultra confident director, comedian, super talented. So, wow. By the way, thank you for coming here today.
Sure,
Everybody's got to go out. We've got a great crowd here. Thanks to everybody for coming out. Give it up for Jay here at Gaslight.
And while we have the mic, all you people are drinking before noon, and that is sad and pathetic. And you all should be ashamed of yourself.
And thank you again for coming out and supporting everybody.
Oh, yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Big shout out to Matt.
You just insult the crowd who shows up? Is that
right? Yeah, they're taking time out of
look at him, Jay. Just look at him.
Well, we certainly appreciate everybody coming out. You have to go show some love at Helium Comedy Club this weekend. Go see Super Troopers 2. Anything else we need to know about? I feel like you probably have 5 projects.
420 is the official
420 is the official release date.
Nice. That's Bree, who's in the back. That's her birthday, too.
So there you go. That's going to be good time.
So thank you for setting that up. Helping on Travis's birthday today, and then the other member of our team, Bree, back in the back. So what else you got in the works? Anything we need to keep an eye out for?
I need to have more than just a movie and 4 stand-up shows?
I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. Stand-up days, everything else.
Netflix special to throw at you, Chris.
Listen, the 7 people and Grandma down in Arizona that are listening need to be fans of Jay.
I just directed a whole fucking movie. What more do you want from me?
Well, we're looking forward to it. I'm pumped to see it. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.